Okay, so bad things have been occurring. Really bad things, very tragic things have been happening. So we got some development on the situation in Afghanistan, and recently, as of the recording of this video, there have been at least two bombings outside of the airport in Kabul, and a dozen, meaning 12 U.S. servicemen or women, have been killed, and I believe 15 or so more have been wounded, as well as many Afghan civilians. So, what I want to do in this video is not discuss military operations. I won't go into, because the perpetrators of this were ISIS, right? I won't get into, their objectives. I won't try to decipher the meaning behind this attack. I'm no expert among those lines. I don't work for the military. I'm not employed by Joe Biden or anything of the sense. But what I will do is talk about the response that this has gotten from the media and from people on social media, everywhere across the political spectrum, because that I can discuss. So let's get into this. Let's start from the beginning. So there was an attack outside of the airport. And as we know, Joe Biden previously said that if there had been any disruptions, any kind of harm to the American people, during this evacuation, they would respond swiftly, or whatever it was that he said. I'm paraphrasing here. And that has seemingly come into fruition. And we'll get into what he had to say a little bit later, but let's just stay on track here. So after this, what we've been seeing lately from the media and from the people, from the imperialists, let's just call them what they are, is this pro-war narrative. It's been, hair on fire coverage. The world is ending. This is a catastrophe. This is the worst thing that anyone can ever imagine. The U.S. is withdrawing from Afghanistan. Oh my God, a U.S. president is actually ending a war and not starting new ones. Wow, oh my God, they're just losing their fucking minds. And allow firstly me to state that this is extremely tragic what happened to the service people. It's extremely tragic what happened to the Afghan civilians. Anybody that was caught up in that nonsense that was experienced over in Afghanistan. But this is no reason whatsoever to flat out push propaganda and argue for more war and a resurgence of troops, which is what these people are arguing. I was watching Jake Tapper earlier today, and it's the typical bullshit. I don't know why I was doing it. Don't ask me why. I was just trying to, catch up on some things. I never watch mainstream media, but I caught myself doing it, and I immediately turned it off after like 5 minutes. They had like former CIA personnel, former personnel from the FBI. It's a freak show. It's theater. It's absolutely ridiculous. The types of individuals that they're asking, the question that they're asking. They want specific answers, so they go out and seek specific personnel, so they can push their narrative and their propaganda. And so what's going on is the following. So there was this terrorist attack from ISIS, correct? And now the media and the pro-imperialists online are using this to somehow justify going back into Afghanistan to fight more war, to continue the war, to do a resurgence of troops. And my question is, what the fuck are you going to accomplish? What? Okay, so we go in there, because what they're saying is, mainstream media, we don't know the Taliban and ISIS. This could be a collaboration. They were in on it. We should go in and do whatever. And, Jake Tapper, how can, you watch this happen and not want to do anything about it? They use this indirect language that if you really look and read in between the lines and what they mean, they're just arguing for more war, more carnage, and more death. Well, let's look at the facts, since that's what we do here. What we know is that ISIS is a sworn enemy of the Taliban. What we do know is that they have been fighting ISIS. What we also know is that we aided the Taliban in fighting ISIS. Yeah, we did. And I'll link the Washington Post article down below that details a lot of what you need to know concerning that situation, as well as other situations. We armed jihadi rebels in Syria that were fighting Al Qaeda. Yeah. And they're pushing this narrative on mainstream media that the Taliban and ISIS are somehow in this together with this attack, this awful, horrendous attack that killed a dozen American soldiers, right? And wounded and killed however many others. I don't know the specific numbers, right? And they're using that to justify more war. Okay, so we go in, what happens? We cause even more damage. We cause even more carnage. Let me tell you what the anti-imperialist, objective, common sense opinion would be. Oh, wow. What a tragic event that just occurred. Let's get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Let's make sure we get out of here. Let's actually, if there is a way to speed up the process more than it has already been sped up, let's do that. Let's get out of here even quicker now. I mean, how is that? I don't understand it. One thing that I also failed to mention regarding the fact that the mainstream media, the imperialists, the people that are pro-war are saying that the Taliban is somehow in corroboration with the ISIS terrorists and that bombing that occurred, is that the Taliban just got their long-awaited, in their sense, emancipation. And they want to put on, their Sunday's best for the international community and the people that are witnessing this. And this directly opposes their interests. This is something that they wouldn't want to happen. Remember when the spokesperson came out and said all those fiery words about how nobody would be harmed? Now, I'm not saying take their word as if it's law, but it doesn't add up. But they'll use anything and everything to further their pro-war narrative. And what I want to do is read to you a couple of tweets. So this is from Li Feng, a journalist that writes for The Intercept. Over 1,659 civilians in Afghanistan were killed from January to July this year, about half of whom were women and children, where there were no viral images, nothing to use to score political points, so virtually everyone in the media and Congress ignored. And that's the biggest thing. A large majority, this war's been going on for 20 years. You didn't see this type of coverage however many months ago. You didn't see this type of coverage however many years ago. People were still dying. The Taliban were still doing atrocious things, but they didn't fucking talk about it. Why? Because we were still there and we were pushing the agenda of the military-industrial complex and, the intelligence agencies and these military contractors, these industries, whether it be Boeing, Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, Honeywell, you know the fucking story, okay? This is incredibly profitable for those people, all right? And they're the ones that benefited the most from this war. But as long as everything was going par for the course, the status quo was being continued, nobody had anything to say about it. But now, a president, that being Joe Biden, has decided to buck trends and do something about this. Oh, now all of a sudden everything's under a microscope. We got to look at every single thing. And absolutely nothing can be ignored. Of course, a situation like what happened today won't be ignored. But the way that they're trying to spin it to justify going back in is absolutely atrocious. It's absolutely ridiculous. What I want to do is read to you a couple of headlines from articles that were published over this 20-year time frame of a war that has been going on in Afghanistan. Here we go. I was consumed by war. New photo shows the face of U.S. soldier moments after he broke and massacred 16 Afghan villagers as he tells all in astonishing prison letter. Did you ever hear about that over this 20-year time frame? Did mainstream media cover that? Hair on fire, the world is ending. U.S. soldiers killed Afghanistan civilians for sport and collected fingers as trophies. That was published from The Guardian. You see, so much happened. There were so many events that occurred over the course of these 20 years. That's the point that I'm trying to get across. And now that we are pulling out, They are amplifying everything, and they're not just talking about it. They're not just reporting on the news. They're reporting it and then making the case as to why this war needs to continue, as to why more death, more carnage, more atrocities needs to continue. And if it does continue, guess what happens as a result of it? We create more terror. This is, I mean, it's terrorism 101. Noam Chomsky talks about this very eloquently and clearly. You know, when you go about trying to get rid of terror by causing your own terror, you only create more terror. Okay, what happens when you drop a bomb in Afghanistan and you kill however many people, including civilians and what have you? Well, the families of those people are going to hate you, and they're going to become the terrorists that you just tried to destroy. And it's an endless cycle. So let's get out of here as soon as possible. And I watched Joe Biden talk, and it seems like they're standing true to that. So what we're getting from his administration is they're keeping the August the 31st, I believe it is, deadline intact, and they're still trying to get out. But he did have some worrisome remarks. And I will say, I watched a little bit of the press conference with Jen Psaki when she was taking questions from reporters. Oh, the questions that they were getting from those reporters were absolutely horrendous, absolutely terrible. I mean, the pro-war narrative. I mean, but let me get into what Joe Biden had to say. So this is from an article from CNN. President Joe Biden vowed Thursday to retaliate for a terrorist attack that killed a dozen U.S. service members outside Kabul's international airport, even as he said the frantic mission to airlift Americans from Afghanistan would continue. We will not forgive, we will not forget, we will hunt you down and make you pay, Biden said in early evening remarks from the White House, hours after the Pentagon said 12 service members had been killed in 2 separate suicide blasts outside the airport gates. In subdued but firm tone, Biden said he's asked the U.S. military for options to respond to the explosions, which he said had been carried out by the Islamic State affiliate operating in Afghanistan. We will respond with force and precision at our time, at the place we choose, in the moment of our choosing. Here's what you need to know. These ISIS terrorists will not win. So that's the message from Joe Biden himself. He's still keeping the evacuation intact, but as you just got it there, we just got confirmation. And this is what I was afraid of. But, I mean, what do you expect? You know, he's not a changed man. He's still who he was. He just so happens to oppose this particular Afghanistan war. But you just got confirmation there. In the future, you will see more death, more carnage in the form of what? I don't know. Bombings, drones. I have no idea, but at the very least, it seems like they're still going forward with the troops leaving. General, I think his name is General McKenzie, I believe it is, like Kenneth McKenzie or something like that, said on CNN that they would not, he did not request for additional troops. He believes that they have all the troops that they need to adequately get the remaining 1,000 Americans out. So there's actually as I'm making this video, 1,000 Americans that still need to be evacuated. And that's another thing that mainstream media hasn't been covering. How good, dare I say, the evacuation, the actual evacuation, not the situation in Afghanistan regarding the Taliban and the Afghanistan people and whatever else, but the actual evacuation has been going pretty good, pretty smooth up to this point. Over 70,000 Americans have been evacuated from Afghanistan. I mean, they won't, and I think I'm actually understating that number, but they won't tell you that. They won't tell you that. They'll just talk about it from the angle of everything bad that's happening. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And just to end off this video, I want to read to you a tweet to just outline the sentiment from the pro-war people that are online. So this is from some idiot, hyperbolic fool by the name of Graham Allen. He says, breaking. At least 3 U.S. troops hurt in Kabul airport suicide bombing attack, officials are reporting. We must respond with maximum and unmatched force. Now blood is officially on Biden's hands. He must be impeached over this. So he's some guy running as a Republican for Congress. God, I pray he doesn't get in. Guys, look at what he's arguing for here. And not just him. Many others that are just like him. They're arguing for death. Respond with maximum and unmatched force. What do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? What do you want to drop a nuke on Afghanistan? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want to deploy 10,000 troops? 50,000? 100,000? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I don't understand it. And that's the sentiment that we're getting from these people online. And I know I said last thing, but this is the last thing. Patrick Granfield says, and I couldn't have summed this up any better myself, a brutal irony that the politician who has been most consistent about the need to exit Afghanistan since 2009 may pay the greatest political price for our being there. And that's, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Joe Biden has honestly been consistent on this particular issue about getting out of Afghanistan. And he's president now, and he's finally doing it. And it seems like he's going to take all the heat, not just for getting out, which is actually a good thing, but for us being there in the first place. And I have to say, that is an incredibly sad fact.